All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going way beyond just, flashy kicks and all that movie stuff. We're diving deep into the real meat and potatoes of Bruce Lee's legacy, his philosophy of self-mastery. And get this, we've got a treasure trove of material to dig through. Articles that really dissect his core ideas, explorations of what made Jeet Kune tick, stories about the defining moments in his life, and even interpretations of his most memorable quotes. And we're going to weave all that together with the Eastern philosophies that really shaped his worldview. So consider this your mission if you choose to accept it. We're going on a journey to understand how this icon's principles, ideas that were forged in the crucible of martial arts, no less, they actually offer a surprisingly practical roadmap for your own personal growth.
Yeah, exactly. Forget the Hollywood image for a second. I mean, sure, he had that undeniable charisma on screen, but the real Bruce Lee, the one whose impact has truly lasted, well, his secret sauce was actually a remarkably practical and adaptable approach to life itself. And that's what we're here to unpack. How his philosophy, something he literally fought for and refined, offers surprisingly relevant insights for anyone navigating the complexities of their own lives, trying to reach their full potential.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks. Where do we even begin with a figure like Bruce Lee?
Well, the sources we've got all point to these foundational principles: simplicity, directness, and this one's a bit of a head-scratcher, non-classicalism.
Non-classicalism, huh?
Yeah. And it seems like he had, well, let's just say he wasn't exactly thrilled with traditional martial arts as he found them.
So what was the issue? What was rubbing him the wrong way?
It sounds like he felt stifled. Like those rigid forms, the dogmatic sticking to tradition, he saw it as a straight-up obstacle to, actually being effective in a real fight.
Ah, so it's all about what actually works. Cutting out the fluff, getting straight to the point, no wasted movements or fancy techniques that look cool but don't really do much.
Bingo. It was about stripping everything down to the bare essentials, finding the most direct and effective way to achieve your goal. And this is where things get really interesting because it leads to the concept of formless form. And get this, it's also called having no way as way. Sounds a bit like a riddle, doesn't it?
It definitely does, and it makes you think, so how do we untangle this? What does it mean in a way that we can actually grasp?
Okay, so picture this. You're not bound by preset techniques or rigid styles. Instead, you're adapting, you're flowing. You're responding intuitively to the specific situation in front of you. It's like Bruce Lee's famous analogy of the water. It effortlessly takes the shape of any container you put it in. He believed we should be like that, flexible, responsive, drawing on our own strengths to meet whatever challenge comes our way.
I like that. So it's not about being wishy-washy or indecisive. It's more about having such a deep understanding of the underlying principles that you can apply them creatively in any situation. You're not stuck in a rut, just repeating the same routine.
Exactly. And he didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. This whole formless form idea, it was the very foundation of his own martial art, Jeet Kune Do.
Ah, yes! Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. Just the name sounds pretty intimidating. But looking at the material we have, it's clear that it goes way beyond just, learning how to throw a punch or a kick.
Way beyond. It's like a whole methodology for self-discovery. But instead of sitting on a mountaintop meditating, you're doing it through the lens of combat. And those core tenets of JKD interception, simplicity, economy of motion, and of course non-classical movement, they all directly echo those fundamental principles we were just talking about.
Okay, unpack that a bit for me. What do those terms actually mean in the context of JKD?
All right, so interception. Think of it like being proactive. You're disrupting an attack before it even fully forms.
You're cutting it off at the pass. Interesting.
And then you have simplicity and economy of motion. Those emphasize efficiency, making sure every movement has a purpose. No wasted energy.
You're moving with intention.
Absolutely. And then, well, we've already talked about non-classical movement.
Yeah.
Ditching those rigid forms in favor of natural, spontaneous action that fits the moment. And you can't talk about JKD without bringing up the be like water philosophy. That's probably his most iconic concept.
It really is. And it perfectly captures that fluidity and formlessness that he was all about.
It's a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? Just as water adapts to any container you put it in, we should strive to adjust to any circumstance. But that takes real self-awareness. You got to know your own strengths and limitations. And you got to have the agility to respond to change because, let's face it, things are always changing.
Always. And speaking of change and adaptation, there's this really insightful quote from Bruce Lee about learning. He said, in JKD, the idea is to absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is essentially your own. That's gold right there. And it's not just about martial arts, it's a framework for learning anything.
Absolutely. It's an active, discerning approach to knowledge. You're not just blindly following tradition. You're critically evaluating information, taking what resonates with your own experience and making it your own. It's about cultivating your own individual expression, not conforming to some preset mold.
Now that's empowering. And that takes us to Bruce Lee's own life, which was a powerful testament to this philosophy in action. He didn't just talk about it, he lived it.
Oh, yeah. His life story is full of relentless pursuit of knowledge, of constantly pushing himself to improve. He started with Wing Chun, right? But he didn't just stop there. He went on to study all sorts of other martial arts, boxing, fencing, wrestling. The guy was a sponge.
Wow, so he was never content to just rest on his laurels, always looking for new ways to grow. But there's something really important to point out here. The sources emphasize that he never quit Wing Chun.
Right. It remained a key part of his foundation. It's like he was building this incredible martial arts repertoire, but never forgetting where he came from.
That's really insightful. So it wasn't about abandoning his roots, it was about expanding on them.
Exactly. And the guy was more than just a physical powerhouse. He was a serious intellectual, too.
You're telling me. He devoured books on philosophy, both Eastern and Western. There's stories about him constantly taking notes, scribbling down ideas, trying to synthesize all these complex concepts. He clearly saw physical and mental development as two sides of the same coin.
And let's not forget, he faced some really tough challenges along the way. Think about that back injury, the one doctor said would end his martial arts career.
Yeah, I mean, that's a devastating blow for anyone, let alone someone whose life revolves around physical ability.
And then there were the hurdles he faced, trying to break into Hollywood as an Asian actor. Those were some serious obstacles. But the way he persevered, it's a testament to his no-limits philosophy. He pushed past boundaries, showing that self-mastery is this constant process that demands effort, adaptability, and the guts to forge your own path.
It really highlights that self-mastery isn't just about overcoming adversity. It's about having this unshakable belief in your own potential, the ability to redefine what's possible. And that's a really powerful message for anyone facing a challenge that seems impossible to overcome.
It is. And speaking of powerful messages, let's dig into some of Bruce Lee's most famous quotes. They're like these concentrated nuggets of wisdom, each one packing a punch. Let's start with self-knowledge. He once said, the martial arts are ultimately self-knowledge.
It's interesting, isn't it? He's saying that physical discipline isn't just about fighting skills. It's a way to understand yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, how you react when you're put to the test.
Exactly. And he didn't stop there. He also said all types of knowledge ultimately means self-knowledge.
So he's broadened it out. He's suggesting that any real learning, no matter what the subject is, ultimately leads you back to a deeper understanding of yourself, how you think, how you interact with the world around you.
And then there's this one. To know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person. That highlights just how important relationships are in self-discovery.
Right. It's like when we interact with others, they hold up a mirror to us. They show us things about ourselves that we might not see on our own. It's through these connections that we really start to understand our own character, our tendencies, our patterns. Now, for everyone listening, think about which of these quotes really speaks to you right now. What is it about that particular idea that grabs your attention? All right, now let's move on to discipline. One of his most well-known quotes is, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times.
That one really drives home the importance of focused, dedicated practice, doesn't it? True mastery comes from repeating and refining those core skills, not from dabbling in a million different things.
It's about depth over breadth, really honing in on what matters most.
And then he took it a step further. He said, true mastery transcends any particular art. It stems from mastery of oneself, the ability developed through self-discipline. So basically, self-control is the foundation for any kind of excellence.
Whether it's martial arts, running a business, playing music, whatever, it all starts with that inner discipline. The ability to focus your efforts, control your impulses, and keep working towards your goals.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about perseverance. Bruce Lee had some really insightful things to say about pushing through challenges like this one. Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. That's a real game changer right there.
It really is. It's a shifting perspective. Instead of avoiding challenges, we should embrace them as opportunities for growth, because it's in those difficult moments that we build real strength and resilience.
And he really emphasized that unwavering effort with persistence, persistence and persistence. The power can be created and maintained through daily practice, continuous effort.
So it's not a one-time thing. It's about showing up every single day, putting in the work, and not giving up.
Absolutely. He understood that real achievement takes sustained commitment. No shortcuts. All right, switching gears a bit, let's talk about learning. He had this great quote, "Life itself is your teacher, and you are in a state of constant learning."
I love that. It's a reminder to be open to lessons everywhere, in everything we experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, every interaction, every success, every failure. It all has something to teach us if we're paying attention.
And he really challenged us to put that knowledge into practice with this one. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do.
A powerful call to action. It's easy to get stuck in the knowing stage, but real learning happens when we actually apply what we learn, when we take action.
And of course, we can't leave out the ultimate quote about adaptability, the one that perfectly sums up his entire philosophy. Be water, my friend. It's so simple, yet so profound.
It really is. A constant reminder to be fluid, responsive, adaptable like water. All right, so we've talked about his core ideas, his martial art, and his personal journey. Now let's dive into the Eastern philosophies that really influenced his thinking.
It's fascinating stuff. You can really see how Taoism and Zen Buddhism shaped his worldview. Let's start with Taoism.
Okay, so for those who aren't familiar, what is Taoism all about?
Well, at its heart, Taoism is about the Tao, this fundamental underlying principle of the universe. And it really influenced Lee's thinking, especially his idea of no way is way. It's all about aligning yourself with the natural flow of things.
Going with the current instead of fighting against it. Interesting.
And his emphasis on fluidity and adaptability, that comes straight from Taoism.
It all ties together, and the sources mention this concept of wu-wei, which is often translated as effortless action. How does that fit in with Bruce Lee's philosophy?
Wu-wei isn't about being passive. It's about acting in harmony with the natural order without forcing things. It's about finding that sweet spot where effort meets ease. And that really resonates with Lee's principles of directness and efficiency. Doing what needs to be done, but doing it in the most natural, unforced way possible.
It's like finding that flow state where everything just clicks.
Precisely. And then there's the yin and yang symbol, which is prominently featured in the JKD emblem. That's another direct link to Taoism.
Yeah, it's such a recognizable symbol. What's the significance of that?
The yin and yang represents the interconnectedness and balance of opposing forces, light and dark, masculine and feminine, action and stillness. It's this idea that everything is connected and in constant flux.
And understanding that dynamic is key. It's not about one force being better than the other. It's about finding the harmony between them.
Exactly. Okay, now let's talk about Zen Buddhism and its emphasis on mindfulness and being present in the moment.
All right, so what can you tell us about Zen?
Well, Zen is all about cultivating a mind of no mind. That means being fully present, free from distractions, judgments, or preconceived notions. It's about achieving this mental clarity and spontaneity that allows you to act and react intuitively. And that's crucial in martial arts, where things happen fast, and it's just as valuable in everyday life.
So it's about being fully engaged right here, right now, without all the mental clutter.
And then there's the empty cup metaphor, this idea of always having a beginner's mind.
I like that. So it's about approaching each situation with an open mind, a willingness to learn no matter how much experience you have.
Exactly. It's about letting go of your ego, letting go of what you think you know, so you can truly absorb new information and perspectives.
It's like hitting the reset button, allowing yourself to see things with fresh eyes. It's clear that these philosophies weren't just academic subjects for Bruce Lee. They formed the bedrock of his principles.
Absolutely. They gave him this spiritual and philosophical framework that emphasized intuition, naturalness, and being fully present in everything you do. And it all comes back to this idea of the interconnectedness of mind and body.
Right. For Bruce Lee, self-mastery wasn't just about physical strength.
No way.
Yeah.
He saw it as this holistic thing, physical, mental, and spiritual development, all intertwined. His rigorous physical training went hand in hand with his philosophical studies and introspection.
He truly believed you couldn't have one without the other.
Exactly. He knew that true mastery required both a strong body and a clear, focused mind. Mindfulness and presence were crucial both in his martial arts practice and in his overall approach to life. It was all about being aware, engaged in the moment.
And that holistic approach was what allowed him to push past his perceived limits.
It's amazing, isn't it? By integrating all these different parts of himself, he achieved this incredible level of effectiveness, both physically and intellectually. He really understood himself and the world around him, and that's a powerful reminder for all of us. Our physical capabilities are enhanced by mental clarity, by inner strength. So I want to ask our listeners, are you thinking about both your physical and mental well-being in your own life? Are you taking care of both? Now let's take all this wisdom we've unpacked, all these insights from Bruce Lee, and distill them into some practical takeaways, things we can actually apply to our own journey of self-mastery.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
First things first, embrace simplicity and directness in everything you do, in your communication, your actions. Focus on what truly matters, cut out the fluff, and avoid unnecessary complexity.
And remember to be like water. Cultivate that adaptability and fluidity to navigate those inevitable changes and challenges that life throws your way. Never stop learning. Embrace a mindset of growth, always seeking out new knowledge, new skills, new experiences. And don't be afraid to experiment, to find what works best for you.
Great advice. And when you find something that resonates with you, something you're passionate about, focus on it. Develop those key skills, practice with dedication, and don't spread yourself too thin trying to do everything at once.
And never, ever underestimate the power of self-awareness. Take time for introspection. Really dig deep and understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your tendencies.
It's about knowing yourself inside and out.
Yeah.
And remember, resilience is key. Learn from Bruce Lee's example. Persevere through obstacles, through setbacks, through disappointments. Don't give up.
That's the spirit.
Oh,
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bruce Lee's legacy, here's the key takeaway. His journey wasn't just about kicking and punching. It was about breaking through self-imposed limitations. His philosophy gives you a powerful framework for approaching challenges, with adaptability, with a dedication to constant learning, and with a deep understanding of yourself.
and on that note, I want to leave you with this final thought. Think about the container you're currently in. It could be your job, your relationships, your habits. Ask yourself, how can I be more like water? How can I adapt to the shape of this container while still staying true to myself? What rigid structures or beliefs do I need to let go of so I can flow more freely towards my own version of mastery? Remember, this deep dive is just the beginning. The real exploration starts now as you take these principles and apply them to your own life. So go out there, be like water, and keep striving for your own unique form of self-mastery.